I came in 1984, and I'll tell you that I loved every minute of the time I was there as dean. And as I reflect on this 50th anniversary, I was dean for 30 of the 50 years. Wow. Before coming to Houston, I was at Troy State University in Alabama, and it was an academic campus, not a medical center. It had several branch campuses. So we had nursing on 4 different campus sites. And I really missed being where the medical clinical action was. So that's what I was seeking at that time, to move to a place where the nursing school was located in a medical center type setting. So that's what motivated me. And I really, really liked the president of Dr. Roger Bulger at that time, and we had a very good interview and very, very positive aspects of the Texas situation. The nursing school when I came was not very well known, uh, not very well regarded, even among in the city of Houston, and certainly not anywhere on the national scene. And I think Dr. Bulger's position was, we have so much potential here that's not been activated. And that was his goal, is to let the school become what it could be. The school, when I came, had a bachelor's program and a master's program, did not have any doctoral programs at that time. There was also a need to get the school more involved with the clinical agencies. And when I came, it seemed to me that the stance was, the hospital is one thing and the school is something else, and we don't have anything to do with each other except when we have to. And my feeling was, we need to be more integrated. We need to have our faculty practicing just like the medical school does, and not just be over in the ivory tower. So that was one of the big challenges. Hermann, as it was then, was the primary clinical agency for the medical school. And because Baylor and UT had kind of divided up the clinical areas, our medical school was pretty much limited to the Hermann Hospital. But with nursing, I wanted us to be primarily with Hermann, but also with all the other clinical agencies in the medical center. And we did start off with Hermann, and we had a strong relationship there. When I was in Alabama, we started the first faculty practice. And then when I came to Houston, I wanted to do the same thing. And we did establish a nurse practitioner clinic um, where our faculty could practice, as well as we established faculty practice contracts with hospitals so that our faculty, and it was voluntary, whoever wanted to do it, we didn't force anybody to do it, could spend some of the week in the clinical agency doing what the clinical agency needed them to do. Many of them were interested in research in the hospital. Our faculty was interested in research and getting access to populations. And so it was a natural win-win situation that our faculty could practice in the hospital, and then they could also take their students there later in the week. And so everybody benefited, I think, from that arrangement. Well, one of the pivotal factors that changed things, I believe, is I had a petition from the students saying, we do not want to have our class next semester in room so-and-so. We have too much noise in there. The air conditioning is not right. And I took that to the administrators of the university. So it did take us a while and more than one president to finally get the building. But something that was very interesting, that was the time there was a big emphasis on environmental controls and, trying to be more environmentally friendly. And so the first thing that the administrators did was to hire a firm that had a reputation for sustainable buildings. This firm was in Kansas. And then we learned that in the state of Texas, to build a public state building, you must have a Texas architect. So we had to get another set of architects from Texas, and then these two architectural firms had to work together. The process was very laborious. We had numerous groups, everybody gave input, all the stakeholders, and very methodically went through everything. This was also the time when online education was just being heard of, really. And so we were trying to predict what will education look like in the coming years for this building. And I think we over predicted for that time about the online education, but now I'm sure it is just what's needed. One of the most important things for the school was our getting approval from the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. First of all, for our first doctoral program, and then for the DNP, and the other programs that we had. We had to always go before this coordinating board to get approval. And I remember, and we were always fiercely opposed. It's very interesting that with our first doctoral program, I wrote a grant, and in our proposal for getting approval, I went to each of the medical school chairmen in our university and asked them for a letter of support for the program, and every one of them gave me a letter of support. And when I showed that to the president, he said, "This is the first time that the medical school chairs have ever agreed on anything." So that was a nice feeling. But our own medical school has always been very supportive of our nursing school. Well, this was a program that we designed that was actually a win-win-win all the way around. This was a time of the severe nursing shortage. And in the medical center, with so many nurses, this was a big, big problem. And we had identified that the reason for the nursing shortage was a shortage of faculty because we could not take in more students. The state board requires you have a ratio of faculty to students. And so we designed this plan. What we needed was a lot of PhD graduates as soon as possible. So we could increase the number of nursing students. So the program was designed so that we would take in a student. We said to the hospital, if you will fund one student, they will come in and we'll give you a PhD graduate in 3 years. They can take, every additional faculty can take 10 students. So if you fund this person to become a faculty member, they will bring their 10 students into your hospital during their clinical work, so you can recruit those 10 to come to work for you afterwards. We'll guarantee you that this faculty member will do his or her research in your facility. So that was the side for the hospital. The students' win-win was you can get your education paid for and get a stipend, which was $60,000, which is pretty darn good for a graduate student. We will hire you as a teaching assistant while you're in school. So that'll give you your insurance and your other benefits and give you some practical experience teaching. And we'll get you through this program in 3 years because all of the ways people got doctorates in nursing was part-time. And for that, you agreed to teach for us for at least 3 years. And we figured once they were on the faculty for 3 years and started their career, they'd probably stay. And for the school, it was a great deal because as I said, most of our students were part-time. The faculty were delighted to get a cohort of students who would go full-time, who were really dedicated to getting this and get into depth and start their research early and teach them as a cohort. And it would mean that we were guaranteed to have an increase in faculty when they graduated so that we could increase enrollment. So it was really a very, very good program. I had asked my administrative team, you tell me if I need to retire, if I need to, if I'm losing it. And of course, they never did, but I decided, I think 30 years is a good time to transition into something different. So at that time, I was also doing the interprofessional work. So the plan was that I would do 6 months sabbatical, and then I would return full time as the senior vice president for interprofessional education, which I was already doing, but now I could focus on full time. And I had planned that I would stay in that role until I got it off the ground and felt like it was running and could continue on. So that came about. I felt like March of 2016 was that time. For we were on an upward trajectory every year.